The rain fell steadily in Georgia, drumming a somber rhythm on the roof of the bus stop. It was one of those endless gray afternoons in early 2009 when the sky seemed to weep as much as the earth. Beneath that shelter, perched precariously on the edge of a chipped concrete bench, sat a petite black woman named Miss Althea. Her skin, the color of warm caramel, was etched with the fine lines of age, each crease telling a story of a life well lived. Her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun, framing a face that was both strong and gentle. She was just an ordinary woman, a school cafeteria worker, not wealthy, not famous, but rich in spirit and compassion. As she waited for the bus that would take her home, she watched the raindrops race each other down the glass pane of the bus stop shelter, creating a mesmerizing display of watery streaks. Suddenly, a small figure stirred beneath the bench. At first, she thought it was just a stray cat making its way out of the rain, but then she heard a soft whimper, and her heart went out to the sound. Peering under the bench, she saw a small boy, maybe 8 years old, curled into a tight ball, shivering violently. His clothes were soaked and clung to his thin frame, and his face was bruised and streaked with dirt and rain. "Sweetheart," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm in the cold air. "Where's your mama?" The boy lifted his head slowly, and she gasped at the sight before her. His eyes, large and dark, were swollen and wary, like a wild animal caught in the headlights. "Mama," he whispered, his voice hoarse and broken, like the wind whistling through a shattered window. He looked at her for a moment, then dropped his gaze back to his lap. Something about his posture, the way he huddled on the bench, spoke volumes of sadness and defeat. Althea felt a pang of sympathy. This child, whoever he was, needed help. Without a second thought, she took off her own coat, a simple blue cardigan, and walked around the bench. The boy flinched as she approached, but she held out the coat to him anyway. "Here," she said gently. "Wrap yourself in this. You'll be warm in a jiffy." Slowly, hesitantly, he took the coat and wrapped it around himself. It was big on him, almost reaching his knees, but it was also warm, and as he did so, Althea noticed his hands were bruised and dirty. Gently, she reached out and touched them. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured, her heart breaking at the sight. Taking the boy by the hand, Althea led him away from the bus stop and towards her home. He followed her obediently, his eyes downcast. When they reached her front porch, she turned to him and smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, sweetheart," she said. "You're safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you." Then, without waiting for a reply, she unlocked the door and led him inside. Inside, Althea's house was a symphony of warmth and light. The windows were open, letting in the sweet scent of honeysuckle and fresh-cut grass. The walls were adorned with family photos, each picture a testament to a life filled with love and laughter. On the kitchen table lay a checkered cloth, and on it sat a plate of cookies, still warm from the oven. After settling the boy on a chair, Althea brought out a blanket and a pillow and tucked him in. "Here," she said softly. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll get you some milk and cookies." The boy nodded mutely and curled up on the blanket, his eyes fixed on the floor. Over the next few hours, Althea cared for the boy as if he were her own grandchild. She fed him cookies and milk, cleaned his wounds, and even let him sleep in her guest room. All the while, he remained quiet, his only sounds being the soft sniffles that escaped him occasionally. In the morning, after the boy had slept soundly in her guest room, Althea made him breakfast and then called child services. As the hours passed, the social worker arrived and Althea handed the boy over to her. "Here you go," she said softly. "This is Terrell. I found him at the bus stop last night. He needs a home." The social worker nodded. "Don't worry, Miss Althea. We'll take good care of him." As the social worker led Terrell away, Althea couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. The boy, Tyrell, had become attached to her, and she knew that once he entered the foster care system, it would be hard for them to meet again. It turned out that Tyrell had been living with his stepfather for years, enduring physical and emotional abuse at his hands. No one had ever stood up for him, not until Althea. The news of Tyrell's case shook the small town, and many people criticized Althea for meddling. "It wasn't my place to involve myself in other people's business," they said. "Who knows what kind of trouble that boy had brought upon himself?" But Althea paid them no heed. She knew in her heart that she had done the right thing. And so life went on. Althea worked, cooked meals for her church potlucks, and attended Bible study classes. Every now and then she thought of Tyrell and wondered how he was doing. Had he found a good home? Was he happy? She never got answers to these questions. Fast forward to present day. It's a quiet afternoon in 2024. Sunlight streams through the windows of Althea's cozy living room. The walls are adorned with pictures of family and friends, each photograph a silent testament to a life well lived. At the ripe age of 68, Althea's hands are gnarled with age, her face a map of wrinkles that tell tales of 1,000 smiles. She hums a soft tune as she sips her tea, lost in the memories of her life. Suddenly, the familiar chime of her doorbell breaks the silence. Startled, Althea sets down her teacup and walks towards the door. As she opens it, she's met with the sight of a tall man standing on her doorstep. He's impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his briefcase resting on the ground beside him. But it's his face that truly captivates her, a face that stirs a deep sense of familiarity within her. "Miss Althea," he begins with a warm smile, his voice echoing the sincerity of his words. "It's me, Tyrell." The name hangs in the air between them, resonating with meaning. Althea's eyes widen in recognition. The boy she'd saved all those years ago now stands before her as a successful man ready to return the favor. Overwhelmed with emotion, tears well up in her eyes, threatening to spill. "Tyrell," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. She reaches out, her hand trembling slightly, and touches his arm, feeling the strength and gentleness of his touch at the same time. Before long, they're seated in Althea's living room, sharing stories and laughter. Tyrell explains how he'd been adopted by a kind family, graduated from college, and eventually became a counselor for at-risk youth. Through it all, he never forgot the woman who'd saved him, the woman whose kindness had shown him the true meaning of humanity. As their conversation continues, Tyrell reveals the purpose of his visit. "I came back to repay you, Miss Althea," he says, his eyes shining with gratitude. "I may be a grown man now, but you gave me the greatest gift of all, a chance at life, and for that I am eternally grateful." Reaching into his briefcase, he pulls out a set of keys and hands them to Althea. "What's this?" she asks, her voice laced with confusion. "A house," Tyrell replies, his voice filled with emotion. "A new house in your name, paid in full. It's my way of saying thank you, of giving back to you." Althea looks at the keys in her hands, then back at Tyrell. Tears stream down her face as she realizes the depth of his gratitude. In that quiet living room, surrounded by the echoes of the past, Althea understood that the greatest gifts weren't things, but moments, memories, and the bonds of love and gratitude that connected them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, Althea and Tyrell shared a hug, a silent promise of continued support and love.